hello. Hola, hola amigos, amigas, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening maybe. And welcome to Lima, Peru. Today we are going to start with a series dedicated to the Peruvian literature. Some books also will be mentioned in this series, but especially we're going to focus in the authors of these great novels, these great bestsellers that have become also really interesting ways to learn about the Peruvian and Latin American history and culture. So before we start officially, let me introduce myself. My name is Vanessa. Hola, Tish. Hello, thanks for coming. Hola, hola. I am your Lima City tour guide. My tours are all history, archaeology, food. We talk about curiosities. We talk about the untold history of my country, Peru. I am a Limeña, born and raised in the city capital of this beautiful country. And today we are going to talk about a very, very important cultural, let's say, character, a person that is considered to be a ambassador of Peru in the world. Not really loved by every Peruvian. He is also a controversial person, but there's no doubt about the importance of this man for Peruvians and also for the letters in the 21st century. So we're going to talk about today a very important person for Peru, Mario Vargas Llosa. If you have read some of his books, if you know about his novels, well, it would be lovely also to know about your comments. If you like the books of Vargas Llosa, if you have heard about him. By the way, a very important thing about Vargas Llosa is that he has a Nobel Literature Prize. He won this prize in 2010. And the reason why I am in this part of Lima is because we are going to talk about his life in Lima. He's no longer living here. He spends most of the time in Spain, between Spain and also England. He lives in London. He has a house in London. He has a house in Madrid. So we're going to talk about his life. We're going to learn also the reasons why he became a writer. This is going to be a, let's say, 30-minute tour, more or less, just to give you an idea about the length of this event. And we're going to have the chance of also learning a little bit of his biography. So thank you so much, Dana, Lilian, for joining. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment, to ask me things about his life, his work. I am not a literary expert. I am a tour guide, but I love reading Peruvian literature. So I will be also sharing with you my impressions as a tour guide about the importance of Vargas Llosa. So, well, if you are ready to start, please give me a thumbs up. I would love to know if you are hearing me correctly, if you are seeing me correctly. I would love to know if there's any problem about the audio in particular before we start. Oh, gracias, Tis. Thank you, thank you. So, well, we're going to begin with this interesting series dedicated to the Peruvian and Latin American literature. So, we're going to begin now. And let me first of all give you a little introduction to where we are. My tours in the city of Lima take you time to a different location or tells you a different story. I try not to repeat any tour. By the way, if you're interested in Latin America in learning about Peruvian history, give me a follow. In the upper part, you're going to find a button that says follow. So the reason why we started here, this is Miraflores district, is because Miraflores is known as a elegant district, very exclusive district still nowadays, but also it has been home of very important writers, artists, poets in our history, and that is because since its creation in the mid 19th century, it became a balneario. Balneario is a beach resort for the upper class people of Lima. Therefore, the children of these very, very rich families who made most of them money out of the exportation of guano. Guano is the poop from the seabirds. If you don't know about the importance of guano in the world, it is considered the best fertilizer, the most finest fertilizer in the world. But in the 19th century, in the 1800s, it became the source of wealth for Lima's high society. So, by the way, in the distance, let me show you some interesting cafes. For example, the Tiendecita Blanca, which is mentioned in some of the works of Vargas Llosa, works that he, most of the times, placed in Miraflores district or in downtown Lima in the historic center. It has been a place of for meeting, a meeting place of important writers, important people of the letters of Peru. The Tiendecita Blanca, by the way, is known still nowadays as a place, a meeting place for the local, like a well-off families of this district, and is also a famous place for tourists, for visitors here to try Peruvian food. Café Haití also, Haiti, is another of those famous coffee shops where Vargas Llosa, when he was living here in Lima, we're talking about the periods of the 1940s, 50s, 60s, then after he left Peru and traveled to Europe, started to permanently live in between France, Spain, and also England. So he used to spend time in these coffee shops. And these places, as you can see, we still have lots of people meeting in these coffee shops, in these traditional corners of Lima. These are the places where he also, in conversation with other important writers of his time, started also to talk about the importance of talking about politics in his books. His books are also very focused into politics. And if you want to learn about Peruvian politics, you have to definitely go to the most important of his books. In one occasion, he said that that is book that he will save if all his books will be put on a fire, on a bonfire, and that one is Conversaciones en la Catedral, or Conversations in the Cathedral. That is the absolute most important political novel we have in Peru. So, well, now we're going to continue walking, and this is just to give you a little introduction to why this zone has been chosen, not just by me to give you an introduction to the life of Vargas Llosa. Also, the district where we are, called Miraflores. You can see the name of the district in the upper part, Miraflores, one of the 43 districts of Lima. This district has created a literary route, and this literary route is dedicated to the life of Vargas Llosa, Mario Vargas Llosa. But now, as we walk here together in this beautiful park, this is the park 7 de Junio, June the 7th, also known as the Central Park of Miraflores, and now most popularly known as the Park of the Cats, because we have beautiful cats here that sometimes I bring voyageurs, our Hego voyageurs, to see, to pet, so please stay tuned to that tour that is coming soon again. We're going to chat a little bit about the life of Vargas Llosa. And if you don't know who he is, let me post first a picture about him, because, well, this is the way how he looks nowadays. Mario Vargas Llosa, but also his name is much longer. By the way, as you know, Latin Americans have quite long names. His full name is Jorge Mario Pedro Vargas Llosa. He was born on 1936, but he was not born in Lima. He was born in Arequipa. Arequipa is a city located in the South Andes of Peru, and is also home of very important heroes and personalities of the country, a land of also thinkers, a land of, well, let's say, beautiful architecture as well. It is also known as the White City for many reasons. One, because the city of Arequipa is built in a volcanic stone called sillar. But also it is known as the White City because there is a large population of descendants of Spaniards. So Mr. Vargas Llosa, he belongs to a family that was well off, at least middle class, upper class, or well off, and there's also an ascendancy from the Spanish connections. So Mr. Vargas Llosa was born in a family that was broken. And the reason is because his mother, Dora Llosa Ureta, married Mr. Ernesto Vargas Maldonado, who was a military man, but also a person of very strong temper character. And the marriage didn't last long. It lasted really some few months. Let me show you also the picture of his father and mother. And there is also it was a traumatic event, initial traumatic event in the life of Vargas Llosa, because we're talking about, the period of the 1930s, 1940s. People were still very, very traditional, and divorces or broken families were usually pointed out being, like among the rest, right? Like there was a big stigma, about the divorced families or broken families. So the father of Llosa, I'm just pointing out some of the cats here in the famous park of the cats of Miraflores. The father of Vargas Llosa, after just 5 months of marriage with the mother of Vargas Llosa, Mrs. Dora Llosa, he pretty much disappeared from the life of their little family. He just left. And they had no news about him until Vargas Llosa, Mario Vargas Llosa, was around 11 years old. Imagine that, right? What a big trauma for a child who believed his father was dead. He believed his father was dead. And really nobody mentioned about the location of his father because they had no idea where he was, or at least that's what initially he believed. But later on, the mother of Mario Vargas Llosa, a really loving person, a person that was very, very important for the, let's say, for the life, the writing of this man. She knew he had another family. So he formed another family. He had also children with another family. So, well, she tried to keep that silent. So, well, Mario Vargas Llosa, I think that a starting point in his life was quite traumatic. And this is later the reason also of some of his, let's say, most important bestsellers and books are always influenced with the figure of a evil character, an evil person. Because when the father of Vargas Llosa returned to his life, he, already he believed that he was dead. He even prayed, he said, to him, because he had a picture of his father by his side, next to the bed, and he prayed every night to that person. From one day to another, he reappeared in his life, and, well, he left with his father and his mother, again reunited. This person ended up being a very strict father, a very, very strict person. Before he reunited with his father, he had a very, very close relation with his grandparents from his mother's side, and he was very, very united to them. He was a very, very loved child, especially because of his situation of not having his father present. So his grandfather became the father figure, a person that Mr. Vargas Llosa even pronounced like his name during his speech when he received the Nobel Literature Prize, right? So that's just an idea of how important his grandfather and grandmother were for him. His initial let's say, years, his first years of life, he spent it in Arequipa, but later on, because his grandfather was connected with the president of those days, his grandfather was designated to go to Bolivia, and he spent also a part of his life in Bolivia, in that country. Just a little parenthesis about this architecture you see here. This is the church, the central church, or the main church of Miraflores. And this construction is from the 1940s. So basically, when Vargas Llosa lived in this part of the city, in Miraflores, in his part of his teenage years, already like youth, adult time, he also was able to visit probably this church. Initially, he was a Catholic person. Then later, he changed a lot his opinion about religion. And this is the city hall of Miraflores. So these constructions existed when Vargas Llosa visited Miraflores and spent part of his life in this district. So we will continue now a little bit with the biography of this person. And you know that he lived in Bolivia, in Cochabamba, in Bolivia, part of his first years of life. And later he went back to Peru in direction to the north part of the country, the north coast. So something important about his past, a brief past across Lima, when he was way to the north of Peru. He remembered in some of his books how impressive Lima was for him, because he was coming from Cochabamba in Bolivia, a small, let's say much smaller city than Lima, and also his wish to see the ocean, his wish to see the Océano, no? Because he lived big part of that early first years of life away from the ocean, right? So Vargas Llosa produced a lot of different books. Titles of his most books, we're talking about over different like books, tales, essays, let's say, well, novels, of course, plays, so many scripts. But there are, of course, some that are considered to be way more famous than others. So I'm going to mention today a little bit about the most important books and the ones I recommend you to give a look online maybe. And if you can buy the book, that would be even better, right? So Mario Vargas Llosa has Peruvian and Spanish nationality, by the way. And also it's really interesting. That's also a reason why of the controversies about him. Oh, by the way, this section of Miraflores is a part where we usually have events, fairs, book fairs. Come to Lima in person, most likely in this section, you're going to be able to find a book fair at least, and all of this tradition around books in this district is also because of the many good writers we have connected to this district. Okay, so just to let you know what's happening in this section. So Mario Vargas Llosa returns to Peru in 1945, and he installed in Piura. Piura is the north coast of Peru. Until finally, well, he meets again his father. He surprisingly knows that Dad is not dead, Dad is alive, and he goes back to, you know, the life of the mother of him. So as a lonely child, of course, he had no idea what to expect from this person. No? But well, as a military man, Mr. Ernesto Vargas Maldonado was very strict, too strict for a young boy who was really the king of the house, because he was also like too much loved, I think, by all the family. A little interruption just to show you a place that was frequently visited by Vargas Llosa in his teenage years here in Lima. And we're going also to talk about this period in a moment. This is the Eladeria Donofrio. Eladeria means in English ice cream shop, right? Donofrio is a old and also very much loved brand dedicated to produce ice and gelato style here in Peru, and also was established by Mr. Pedro Donofrio in the beginning of the 20th century. So this is the place, this is the tea room, the place where the first shop, Donofrio, was open, and still is working, as you can see. And Vargas Llosa used to visit frequently this place. His friends also in his days of teenager, right? So you can see here, for example, that some parts are still kept original from the period of the 1940s, 1950s. Like, for example, the entrance, the woodwork. Sorry, the metalwork. This is a metallic structure at the entrance. So we're going now to continue. This is Donofrio, Eladeria Donofrio. So when he came to Lima after he met his father took him and his mother to Lima, to a district called Magdalena. Magdalena is a middle-class district, and he lived like a little prince with his grandfather, his relatives, all his life. And from one day to another, well, he lived a complete different reality, a way more modest life condition that he was used to. Now, all of this mix was very confusing for the young Mario Vargas Llosa. But he had a family who was very well off, and this family lived in this district, in Miraflores. So for him, the life in Miraflores was very quiet and very happy, very merry. He frequented his uncles and aunties in this location. And he also met good new friends, friends who he loved a lot, and who still are friends with him currently. Some of them were writers, some of them came also flourish in other spheres, in the politics, in the military, etc. So his life was like here, like in a little bubble, right? There is a really interesting concept about the life in places like this one back in the mid 20th century. It was created the concept of barrio. If you are familiar with the word barrio, by the way, most likely you're going to think about the barrio like the hood, the place where the gangsters live, and that's also another way, like we know the word barrio, more related with the modest, low-income areas of Latin America. But in the 1940s, 1950s, there was another concept of barrio here in Lima. And that was, the barrio, but the well-off barrio. The barrio was a little micro world where, in the upper class zones, where the rich kids met other rich kids, and they didn't left the cities, the areas where they live. They didn't know about other realities. They didn't know about the poverty that existed in the country back then. Lima was very, very much divided back in that time, because there was a really small group of poor people that were living in the outskirts section. Yet back then, majority of the population of Lima was middle class and upper class, and the poor were not really in the metropolis area. Things changed dramatically later, of course, and I will tell you a little bit about this. And the children were kept, protected in these spaces where there was no poverty, at least no poverty visible. Right? In the 1940s, we had with you a picture that is really interesting too. We had this. Look at the picture I just shared. You're going to see pictures connected with a phrase that we use in Peru to name shanty towns. Pueblo joven, young town. That would be the translation of Pueblo joven. So the new towns, the young towns, the shanty towns, started to emerge rapidly in the 1940s around the city center area, on the hills. And the poor started to come to Lima looking for opportunities. These were peasants who were like really, really, poor, so poor that they couldn't really feed their children. They had no opportunities. Because of the creation of new roads also that to connect the city with other parts of the country, many of these peasants started to migrate to the capital also, looking for maybe the chance of working in factories, etc. So this situation and the picture I'm sharing with you started to become the new problem for the upper class people of Lima. That's why the barrios, the well-off barrios started to become more like a protected, more enclosed life within them. And Vargas Llosa was able finally to meet this reality later in his adolescent years when he was taken to study because his father, was military. So he wanted his child or his son to be more like a, virile, more tough, more masculine, because his son loved to write. And since very, very young, he liked to write books. Like he read a lot of them, and he started to write, first of all, essays, and then after poems. And that was not considered to be really masculine by his father of Mario Vargas Llosa. So he wanted him to be more involved in a military life. Usually the military life back then and the military schools were used back in those days in the 1940s, 1950s as a way to, first of all, if your son was a little bit, delicate, like maybe too feminine, he or the father, sended the kid to these military schools. For example, if the son was too tough, like too difficult to be handled, they were sent to military schools, right? So the idea was that the military school will straighten, I think, will make, better form the character of children back then. And because Vargas Llosa was always inclined to literature and to writing, his father considered that to be not masculine enough, and he was sent to a military school. No? But in the military school, finally, what happened with him is that his love for literature was reaffirmed. One of the things that happened with him when he went to the military school, Leoncio Prado, that's the name of the school he went to, was that he, because he was so good writing, he started to write like love letters paid by his friends, which were not so good, with love letters. So, and he was paid by that, right? So he also started to write like soft porn novels for his friends, because this school was like for internment. So they were all the week inside the school, so they didn't see the girlfriends, they didn't see the friends out. So he started to write, and he was paid to do that. So that's the moment when he feels that writing is something it was for him. So that also got him in a lot of problems. You can imagine that. And there are books that are connected also with that period of his life. For example, I think the most important one is The Time of the Hero. In Spanish, La Ciudad y los Perros. This book portrays his life in the military school, and also, well, it's all about a really tragic event that well, the writer, you know, portrays in this book about the let's say disappearance of a the exam, the accusation, the false accusation of one of the poorest students in the school, which was friend also of the writer. They said the most important character in the book, which really portrays him, because the character is called the poet, right? And his narrative is around events he lived in his life. And this is, of course, one of the cases, but also there's another one which is very, very famous, and it is about one of his marriages. So Mario Vargas Llosa is a person who has loved intensely. And let me show you, first of all, a picture of his first wife. And we're going to talk about this lady over here, which is really, really interesting. And Mario Vargas Llosa, by the way, is a man who has loved women who were, in a way, forbidden, forbidden to him. He married his political aunt, Julia Urquidi. She was about 10 years older than him, and he met her the first time when he was very little, by the way, but he didn't really remember so much or recall so much that time. She was already an adolescent, was a little. They met because she was originally from Bolivia, and well, then she was after she divorced from. So, of Julio Urquidi was connected with the family of Vargas Llosa. And the reason is because Julio Urquidi is the sister of Olga. Olga was married to Luis Llosa, who was the brother of Dora, the mother of Mario, right? So what do you think about that, right? Of course, they were not like by blood connected, not with this marriage, but they were, of course, connected politically, right? So when he met her, he fell in love completely of her. She was beautiful and has been always described by Mario Vargas Llosa and the friends of Vargas Llosa as a really attractive lady. And the reason why we are here, by the way, this is the Quinta de los Duendes, and it is portrayed, by the way, in the book that I am now referring to, which was written in the 70s by Vargas Llosa after he was divorced from Julia Urquidi. This book is known in English as Aunt Julia and the Script Writer, La Tía Julia y el Escribidor. And the Quinta de los Duendes is where they actually lived when they were here in Lima, living together in Miraflores. This quinta is, by the way, this complex of little houses that are along this corridor. Usually the houses have like 2 bedrooms or 1 bedroom. So this is a very, very tiny complex, but it is a historic piece of Miraflores, and that's why it is protected. So nothing can happen really to these houses. They cannot be changed. Even there is a place for rent. Se alquila casita. It is on sale, se vende, or alquila on rent. Casita is little house, right? So if you want to come to move to the Quinta de los Duendes, duendes will be like these little creatures, no? Like let's say, I think in English I cannot remember. Please, can you help me? Translating these little entities that are miniature beings, you know, that in other parts of the world are represented. Gnomes, I think they will be called gnomes. Let me know if it's okay, please. I would love to know if I am pronouncing this name correctly. quinta or noms or fairies. Yes, yes, Robina, it could be too. Or noms, as well. So we will continue. Gracias, Robina. Gracias. So this is where they live together. But their life together initially was very intense. Maybe that's why their love was also so intense, because it was forbidden. And Vargas Llosa was always a person of certain temper and certain character that was really complicated to dominate. And so he met her again, re-met her again when he was 18 years old. She was in her late 20s. And they started just timidly to go out to the movies, to the theater. He was, doing this, initially because he was, his nephew, and she was sad, and from those dates, love started. It was first, a hidden love, but then after, it became public. And the father of Vargas Llosa, this, mean person, he was always described as a very, very, tough person that didn't really show much love to his son. He forbade Vargas Llosa to be with her, of course, his political aunt. So, what they did was they married in secret. But it was illegal, to be honest, this marriage. Why? Because when they married, he was 19 years old and she was 30. But the problem is that to be adult back then, in that time, you needed to be 21 years old. So that's why they officially couldn't marry. But it was done. Nothing could be done about it. So finally, the family accepted this relation. So this relation lasted for about a decade. They were 10 years together. And she, Aunt Julia, Julio Urquide, she supported Llosa in every aspect. She protected him. Sometimes, I don't know. Oh, sure. So, what do you think? He having time to survive with wife. It was not usual that women will work, of course, back then. So he had to, pay a lot of bills and things. So he had to work a lot. Bad connection. Oh, Dana, no. Let me know if it's getting better. I see here that it is full, my bar of connection. But let me know, my friends, if you are still receiving a poor connection on your other side, in your end. So let me know, please. And Dana, maybe you can also refresh if it's possible. Perfect. Okay, gracias, Abdul. Gracias, Marisa. Dana, please try to refresh. I think it might be maybe a little disconnect in your internet, local internet. Gracias, amigos. Thanks a lot for staying there. So, no worries, Dana, no worries. So I was mentioning that, this relation, this time, was very important for Vargas Llosa because he reaffirmed also more and more his intentions of being writer. And without Julia, he wouldn't be a writer, by the way. So that picture that I just posted is a picture about him cataloging tombs. He was working part of his time in that period of his life in the cemetery. So one of his works was cataloging tombs with no proper inscriptions, with missing names, for example. This is the type of architecture you're going to see in the zone where he used to live, in the barrio where he used to live here in Miraflores. Unfortunately, many of the original houses from that period, the period of Vargas Llosa, are gone. But you can see also the beauty of some of them. And the influence in many of these houses is, for example, the Tudor style, the European English Tudor, as we call it. So, as we're walking to the last part of this tour, the last minutes, I want to share with you also the zone where he used to live, and let you know also that, well, his life with Julia Urquide was not really like that long together, although they got a lot to be together. One of his dreams was to move to Paris, because he believed in Paris he will have like artistic freedom, he will be surrounded with artists, and he will be able to produce more art. Nowadays, of course, he says that he really appreciates, of course, the opportunities he had been granted, and traveling to Europe and be an artist and a writer and living solely from writing. But Peru has been always the source of his inspiration. All his bestsellers are about Peru, like all about Peru or connected with Peru and Latin America. So, when he was in Paris, he was living in Paris, 10 years married with Julia Urquidi. He received the one relative there, a young lady, very beautiful, by the way, who was the niece of Julia Urquidi, and also connected by blood this time with Vargas Llosa. He received Patricia Yosame, okay, there in Paris, in his house. And he wanted to also, of course, help the family. So he already received another niece, the sister of Patricia, Wanda Yosame, a year before. So, well, it was not a problem to receive Patricia in his house. But Julia Urquidi didn't really like the idea of receiving Patricia. She didn't have very good connection with that niece. She felt something really strange about her. Anyways, Patricia Yosame is the daughter of Olga Urquidi. So remember, Julia Urquidi is the sister of Olga, right? So Patricia was the daughter of Olga Urquidi, hermana or sister of Julia, and therefore connected with the Llosa family as well. The Llosa family is the family from the mother side of Vargas Llosa. What an interesting incest in that family, right? Anyways, Patricia, and let me show you also the picture of Patricia Yosame, maybe just to give you an idea how pretty she is, she was back then. And also another picture of the children they had together, right? So the first picture is Vargas Llosa and Patricia Yosame in the first, years of the nation. Everything started in while he was married, of course. Later, he separated Julia and met his niece. They three children together, as you can see, connected with the literature. They were also connected because when also tried to become president of, that was the period Fujimori or contendant as a decider of this, let's say, oh, sorry, Rovinia, bad connection again? Oh, I'm so sorry. We're just walking here in the streets. Still bad connection. Let me know. Please let me know. if it's a bad connection for everyone, just to know if I just move maybe faster, or maybe I move to another location, goes in and out. Oh, okay, okay, Robinia. We're coming to the end also of this event, walking along the barrio or the neighborhood. And finally, well, here lots of prizes. So let me give you here a picture of some of the prizes. One, the most important is the literature prize in 2010, the Nobel Literature Prize that he received. So we are coming to the end of this tour, telling you a couple of things about him. Well, of course, he's still a very active writer, and also he, well, divorced from Patricia Yosame in 2015, 5 years after he received the Literature Prize of Nobel, and he gave a beautiful speech about his wife and how important she was for him. But unfortunately, well, that relation was maybe having some problems, so they divorced. And that same year, he started a relation with another famous person. Of course, this time she was not related with the family for the first time. This lady is one of the most important celebrities, Spanish celebrity, influencer, also socialite of Spain, Isabel Pressler. And she is famous because she was wife of Julio Iglesias, a famous singer, a Spanish singer, who was known worldwide in the 1950s, 60s, 70s. Very, very celebrated person. So, well, here you have a little bit of the life of Vargas Llosa. This is the architecture that was typical of that period when he used to live in Miraflores. And, well, it is really, really interesting to see that some things connected with his life are still here, are still present. I would like to also share with you all my information. I'm posting all my info, my website, my also channel in Hey Go. Let me turn the camera also to say hello, hello. And I will be doing some tours about literature also coming soon, and important characters and personalities of Peru. There's one person that is coming soon. I'm preparing this for next month, that is also very famous, because my series will be also about famous Peruvians in the world. And maybe you hear about Ima Sumac. Ima Sumac is a famous or was, because she passed away some years ago, singer, opera singer, and in a part of her life also, she worked for Hollywood. So we're going to talk about her. She has a star in the Walk of Fame of Hollywood. So she's coming very soon. And also tomorrow I have a couple of tours. This week I have more tours coming, and they are all about different things. We're going to go to downtown Lima soon. We're going to see street art. We're going to see, also we're going to cook from my house. So please follow my channel. There is a button in the upper part to follow if you wish to support this channel also and the content I'm producing here. You can tip if you wish. If you have the opportunity to do that, that's really, of course, wonderful, because it helps a lot to continue producing content for you. Oh, gracias, Beatriz. Thank you. Thank you so much. You can also well, support monthly with a little fee this channel. That will help me a lot to produce content. And in exchange of that, I am given also advances of my 2 books. I'm writing 2 books about one food. I am doing a cookbook about Peruvian culinary, and also a guidebook about off the beaten path destinations in Lima. So you can access to these books. That's the way how I say thanks to you all. If you become a sponsor of this channel with a small fee every month, You can support the content here, and I will be giving you more updates on this ebook and also upcoming booklets that will be coming. So well, that will be also super fantastic. Thank you so much for your participation, and hope to see you tomorrow in another part of Lima. Best to you all. Muchas gracias. Gracias, Robina, for following. Gracias, Beatriz, for following. Thank you, Dana. I really hope you can go to read some of his books, or maybe an audiobook now that it's so easy to be able to access to books in this other format. So you're going to love the books of Vargas Llosa. Take care. See you soon, and best to you all. Bye-bye. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.